Hi there, I'm Nyrie Roos from Explosion Marketing, and I just want to thank you for joining us today. And I've got a very special expert here who is going to outline for us all about what we should be doing on Facebook and Instagram these days, particularly around maximizing your spend on the platform using ads. So please welcome Heather Aaron, who is a certified Facebook and Instagram ad strategist helping established online experts and boutique e-commerce brands gain visibility on the Meta platform. She is passionate about building Meta ad strategies for her clients that focus on connection first so their customers can get to know and trust their brand before they ask for the sale. So, welcome, Heather, and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm very excited to talk to you.
That's great. So, where are you joining us from today?
I'm in the United States and I
Mhm.
live on the East Coast in New Jersey.
Oh, lovely. So you've got good weather there at the moment?
It's beautiful today. Yes, very nice and warm.
Okay, great. Okay, fantastic. Okay, so I've just got a few questions here that I'd like to ask you. So are you happy if I go ahead and ask these questions?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So can you tell our audience what are the key changes in 2025 to Facebook ads and Meta Business Suite that we need to know about?
Well, it's hard to predict anything that Meta is going to do, but you can usually tell the direction that they're going by seeing what's happening in the news. And lately, they're talking a lot about AI.
Mm.
So I think that's going to be their main focus, is, really trying to get advertisers and just people on the platform using more of their AI. Even though I haven't used a lot of their AI for advertising because I don't particularly like it and I don't think it's quite ready yet. But they keep making it the default when you are, setting up ad campaigns.
Wow, that's amazing. I didn't realize because I haven't been on Facebook for ages. And I also haven't set up ad campaigns for a long, long time. And I suppose I've opted not to do that. And I didn't realize they had an AI built-in tool, but I suppose it shouldn't surprise me because everything's going that way these days.
Yeah, I mean, they've been building this out for a while. You can usually tell when they're about to add something new or they're making some changes because you'll see the glitches happening as you're setting other things up. They're moving things around. They're adding, or they have been adding enhancements to the ads, which are AI, they're backed by AI. And, there's so many different enhancements like adding music or optimizing the text for the person who's seeing the ad. And like I said, I don't particularly like all of those things because I don't feel like their generations are, always on brand. And I don't know if I think that they're quite confusing sometimes because I've even seen ads in my feed that just look odd. And
Mm.
I've had, clients complain if, one of the settings is left on. And, like one of the things I'm talking about is text. I forget what they call it, but it's where they optimize the text for the person looking at the ad, or they have something called text overlays, and it will overlay something on the ad that's, pulled from what you've given it for the ad, and it can just look very, very strange. So when clients see that, they're like, why do my ads look like this odd way? And it's usually, oops, I left on one of those enhancements that's not really enhancing much of anything.
Mm. So I suppose that must be impacting the performance, the targeting, and the testing of the ad campaigns that you set up.
Yeah, so they have something new called Advantage Plus, and that is it's Meta's way of trying to take control of everything. I really don't like it. I would prefer to set up my own targeting, although sometimes if you do set it up using that, you will get better costs. It's just not necessarily going to be, higher quality. Although it's definitely something worth testing. I'm always using one of their, campaigns or one of their Advantage Plus setups for broad targeting in most campaigns that I set up just to test it against other, like I'll set it up in one ad set and then have other ad sets where, it's me having the control over the
Mm,
targeting.
mm.
Um, it's just it's interesting. They're always changing things.
Yes, that's Facebook. They're always changing things, or Meta as we know them now. Um,
Yes.
so how do you find when you've set up those test campaigns, how do you find the test one, if you're setting up for Meta, compares or, performs in comparison to the ads that and the copy that you generate?
Well, yeah, I don't really like what they come up with. It seems very generic. And just, like you could tell it's AI generated. A lot of people can tell. I mean, Chat GPT has gotten a lot better, and I will admit that I do use it, but
Mm,
I use it for a lot of other things other than just writing. I have used it for writing ad copy just to kind of, I'm not the best writer, so sometimes I'll see what it comes up with and then, I'll change it and then maybe 5 iterations later, I'll say, okay, this is okay to run. Um, but yeah, if you can put your ad copy in there and it will pull information from that and it will try to generate the copy for you to have, different variations. And I have never used it. I really
yeah.
don't like it. Yeah.
Mm. Look, there's nothing wrong with using AI. AI, like ChatGPT, like you say, is fantastic with coming up with ideas and concepts and a little bit of copy, but you still have to take it out and tweak it and make it more about your voice, don't you? It's not the ultimate and the be all and end all.
Yeah, and after you use Chat GPT for a while, it really does get to know you. And it's almost scary. It's almost scary. Today I was writing something and I had started a new chat and I was talking about one of my clients and I didn't specify which one and it knew which one I was talking about. And
Mm,
that was very strange. But Meta is not quite there yet. They don't understand your brand voice or who your customer is or your client is. And I just don't see, unless it really progresses, I don't see it becoming something that people will really want to use, like, instead of what they could generate.
mm.
So yeah.
Yeah. And that's why it's really important that people continue to use a strategist like yourself to actually set up, create, and manage their campaigns because otherwise they're just not going to get the results that they would get with you. So I think it's really
Yeah.
important that people just don't jump straight to Chat GPT or any other AI tool and think it's going to be the be all and end all and produce better results in the long run.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, sometimes it is okay. I have even, gone into Chat GPT and said, here's my strategy. Have I missed anything? Do you think there's anything else I should try? Or, I'm having an issue and this is what it is, and, help me figure out a way out of this or something like that. So it can help, but it's really only pulling from the information it has that's out there.
Mm.
It doesn't think like a person.
No, no. So, with interest targeting these days, is it still effective or should we rely more on lookalike and broad targeting campaigns?
Yeah, it's still effective. A lot of it depends on the size of your audience. So, like I was saying before, if you have the budget, definitely test the Advantage Plus against that. But there are still, plenty of clients who are using or who I'm, running ads for that, good detailed targeting audiences that have always worked for them are still working. Um, So yeah, it's definitely worth trying and finding those detailed targeting options that will really work for you. And then, going forward with that, because I think, you can even use Advantage Plus and give it suggestions. So it's sort of a little bit of a marriage of those two things so that you're not just relying on one or the other. So at least currently they are allowing you to do that.
Oh, well, that's good to hear. So, with the latest metapixel and tracking, do we still need it? And how do you set that up correctly to make it perform like it should do for a campaign?
Yeah. Yeah, so the Pixel is definitely still necessary. There are limitations with the Pixel ever since, 2021 when Apple rolled out the the iOS update, the big one. It did change, the tracking, and it's not really a great data match all the time. Everyone kind of knows that and accepts it and finds, other ways to supplement, how they track properly. It's never going to be 100%, but there's also conversions API, which if you can set that up either through an integration or directly or with like there's third party, ways of setting that up. It's just another way to get better tracking. So it works in conjunction with your Pixel.
Hmm.
But I definitely recommend that if you have a website, make sure you put a pixel on it, even if you're not advertising, because you will have the benefit of all the data that has been gathered when you do advertise versus just starting from scratch.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. So, that's a very handy tip for people to ensure that they've
Mhm.
got that pixel actually set up on their websites. That's fantastic. Thank you for that tip.
You're welcome.
Mm. So, tell me, for our listeners, are Facebook lead ads still worth doing, or should they just send people to a landing page, taking in the cost and everything else that goes along with setting up a lead ad?
Yeah, so lead ads can be set up in a lot of different ways. So you have your lead form, which is right on the platform. And then you have, like you mentioned, directing people to a web page. And then there are also ways where you can gather leads that come through phone calls or through Messenger, or people use bots like ManyChat,
Hmm.
and those are very popular right now. So I mean, lead ads are never going to die. They definitely are still worth it. I run lots of lead ads. It's probably at least half of what I do.
Hmm.
So it's definitely worth it. Which option to choose kind of just depends on the person who's running them.
Hmm. So, do you find like what would it cost to actually, when someone's thinking about setting up a lead ad, what sort of budget do they need for daily ad spend on Meta?
So that depends. Everything with ads depends. If you know kind of what cost per lead you normally get, like if you've run ads before, then you would kind of just do that calculation. Okay, if I want X amount of leads and they're coming in at this amount, well, then I have to spend this amount of money. If you don't know, then you have to do some testing and just seeing, initially, what your cost is. Then can you find ways to reduce that cost? And then eventually you'll kind of figure out what your lead cost is. And then you can just go from there by calculating, how many leads you want to get per day and then just adjusting your budget.
Okay, that's great. And I suppose it's something like you say, you've just got to test and try it. But a lead ad's the one of the most, what's the word I'm looking for? One of the most effective ways to get leads to something, or you're better off setting up other types of campaign. Let's just say, like a lot of our listeners are coaches and consultants and service providers. Are they best off if they've only got to start with one ad to start with? What would you recommend is the best ad for them to actually get set up by someone like you?
Really, that depends on what they're trying to do, what their goals are. But if it is specifically leads, like for a lead magnet or a webinar or something like that, If it's a free thing, I would say use the lead objective because when you're basically telling Meta what you want it to find when you are setting an objective. So if you're saying you want leads, then that's what it's going to find you. So that's why you wouldn't use something like a traffic campaign an, an engagement campaign. Because those are some people choose them because they're less expensive. They figure once they get people to the page, then they'll naturally just, take the action that's on the call to action that's on that page. But what Meta is really trying to find is people who will take that action that you want. So if you want them to become a lead, then it uses all of its AI and algorithms in the background to say, okay, I'm going to show the ad to this person because they usually sign up for lead type of ads, just in
Mm.
general. So that's what you want to do. If you want leads, you can try if you're not getting good leads that way, you can try what used to be called a conversion campaign is now called a sales campaign. So, then it's looking for kind of more people who are more willing to convert. So even if it's a free thing, you could try that. But usually I reserve sales campaigns for when I'm trying to get purchases.
Uh-huh. So given that it really depends from what you're saying, if I've heard you correctly, it depends on what they're trying to achieve through their campaign. Do you
Mhm.
know what sort of lead magnet works best for growing a quality list using meta ads?
That's another it depends answer, I think, because you want your lead magnet to be high quality. My advice for anybody who's designing a lead magnet is have it tied to, your bigger offers. Should be kind of like a welcome or like a dip in the water, kind of like, dip your toe in the water kind of thing. If it's free, you want to make people feel like, ooh, this is so great. I would have paid for this. Giving people a quick win through whatever it is that your lead magnet is always a good thing to try to aim for.
Mm, yeah, and I suppose, giving that really high value free offer, if you think about it really smartly, will make a lot of difference to your conversions at the end of the day.
Yeah, yeah. And I know a lot of people kind of fall more towards like quizzes or a free guide or something like that. And that's not to say that those things are bad. It's just, you kind of have to see what kind of leads are coming in with,
Mm,
when you have people signing up for that. Quizzes are fun, so people like to do them, but they're not necessarily, going to be somebody who becomes a buyer.
mm.
And I'm designing my own quiz now, so it's kind of top of mind, but I don't know if I would run ads to it. I would probably just put it out there and, kind of set it out there for free. But I have it where it's going to be segmenting people and then everything on the other end is going to be, trying to drive them towards some sort of sale, maybe, signing up for a webinar that I do or, a low ticket product or something like that that could help them based on their answers. So just having a really good idea of what you want to achieve from getting those leads from a quiz. Like if you decide to do a quiz, that's just, something to keep in mind.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving pieces there, isn't there?
Yes, it's far more complicated than I ever thought it was before I tried to do it.
Yeah. Um, so when it comes to getting lower cost per lead, how do you do that without sacrificing the lead quality and not getting, a whole lot of tire kickers that are just clicking on the ad and maybe signing up, but really going nowhere? What do you think makes the difference with that?
There's a lot of things to consider there. One of the things is, if you are using an on-platform lead form for your ad, is just adding qualifying questions. Even one question, kind of if it's a good qualifier, that could kind of kick some people out, or it'll deter people from continuing to fill out that form. Because it's funny, I don't know what people are thinking. Sometimes they will just quickly fill out a form and then not even realize that they did it. Or, I've even had people who filled out, like local business type business ads, or like let's say it's like a plumber or a real estate agent or something like that. Like people will fill out their form and then they'll call them and they'll say, I never filled out your form. I don't need this. So yeah, so adding something that just helps qualify that person a little bit better. It really helps with the form. And then, instead of using the on-platform form like you were bringing up before, just having your own landing page, it it tends to, bring in a higher quality lead.
Okay. So, with the ad copy, then, what converts best for email list growth right now? Is it short video versus image, story versus news feed? What's sort of working at the moment?
In just ads in general, I would say video because, it's kind of whatever's really happening on the organic side, um, tends to work really well in ads usually. Um, so when I'm running ads for the first time, I'll usually run a static image, a carousel, and then a video, at least those three, just to give it a try and see what'll work. You never know. Sometimes it's the static image that'll work best, and you would never have thought that, but it does. And then other times it is the video. So, yeah, it's just one of those things where if you can just take the time to test it, then you'll figure it out.
Okay, cool. So, when you're setting up lead ads, because a lot of the clients I work with and that listen to this are actually looking to build their database so then they can take them on that, um, client journey, so to speak, and get them to the end game that they want to get to. So when you're using those, do you find with your ads, do you get better conversions with people and better ad sort of spend with taking people to an external landing pages or using the form that's there on Facebook or Meta?
I mean, it really could be either. I would say if you have a landing page and it's already done, and I would say if it's already set up, use that and see how you do. If your lead costs are still too high, there's so many different things that you could try, but a quick thing to try is to just run a lead form ad and see if your costs come in lower. And like I said, you might have to add one little qualifying question or something just to make sure you're getting the right people. But just test those two and just see which one works better and which one will bring you the lower cost leads.
Okay, cool. That's great advice. And when you do that, do you actually split the ad spend for the day, or does it mean at the beginning of campaign that people have got to invest more in their ad spend to actually do that testing?
Yeah, it really depends. Sometimes, we'll start with the landing page and then we'll kind of say, okay, well, the lead costs, we're not getting them any lower. So let's just turn that off and start the form. But if you have the budget for it, or if you want to just do a quick test, you could always do that, like put a little bit more for a few days, just, kind of do the test and then see what happens. Then you can kind of continue with whichever one was working best. But yeah, there's so many different ways to try different things with ads.
Okay, great. And I know this is a little bit outside of the scope of what you do and the services that you offer, but I'd love to hear from you. When people are building out email sequences, once people subscribe to their list through the lead ads, for example, do you think there's anything specifically people should say? Like, should they remind them that they came in from Meta, or what do you think? Have you got any thoughts around that?
That's interesting. I never thought to do that, to specifically say you came in through an ad. I probably wouldn't, because then you probably would have to build out a couple different sequences, or maybe even different funnels. But I think it's always nice to welcome people and to show them, who you are, what you're all about, what they can expect from you. So that's why, even though I'm not an email marketer, it's very closely related to what I do. So, I even when I start working with somebody or before we even start working together, I just make sure that, if I'm going to be bringing you leads, they have somewhere to go. So I want to make sure that people have a welcome sequence of either, like 3 to 5 emails, and then, they're going to email them regularly, because the last thing you want to do is pay all this money for leads and then not do anything with them.
Yeah, that's for sure. It's a waste if you get them to that point and they're just sitting there dead in the water.
Yeah, there's really no point to
Mm,
doing that, unless you're going to pay attention to your leads and nurture them.
yeah. And I suppose one last question I have for you, and probably, is there anything that we didn't cover or that I didn't cover today that you think is really important that you'd like to share with our audience?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very big on constantly running some low cost engagement ads just to constantly bring new people into your world, using those even for testing sometimes, just to test out different audiences and see what resonates with them. And, you could test different ideas for webinars. You could test, messaging, but just running those low cost ads to get yourself out there. They act like a billboard, and it's sometimes the best use of just very little money because you can then retarget those people later.
Hmm.
So I think it's really important.
Right. Okay. So when you say, because it's something that I think a lot of people I know from my experience have said to me, Facebook costs them a lot of money to run ads at times. And that could be generally because they're trying to do it themselves and they don't know what they're doing. So when you say very little ad spend, what sort of ballpark are we talking around here with daily or weekly ad spend?
I mean, you could start as low as $1 a day to run one ad in one ad set, and just have it be for post engagement
Hmm.
or for video views. That would be your optimization. So you're looking to get either engagement on that post or get people watching your video for as long as possible. And then, you set that up so that you're only showing those ads on Facebook and Instagram because there's different placements, and you want to make sure that you're just showing them on there so that you can then pull those people into a custom audience of engagers that you
Hmm.
can retarget later. But you can run these at such a low cost that, even if you spent $5 or $10 a day and ran this, throughout the year, it would be very little, you know, overall. And I think it would be really worth it for most businesses to do something like this if they are struggling with visibility, and showing up in the feed of the right people who need to see what they have to offer.
Hmm. And do you find that you get better conversions from Facebook or Instagram, or is there no difference really?
There's really no difference to me. I know some people are like, well, my audience is only on Instagram. And my argument is your audience is everywhere. You just have to get in front of them. And I wouldn't ignore anyone on Facebook. If I could find my people on Facebook, I would definitely, just run ads to both. It's one of those things where, you can actually do a breakdown within Ads Manager and see where people are seeing your ads, where the most clicks came from, all that kind of stuff. So, you might be surprised. You might be surprised if you run it, in those two placements. You might actually find that a lot of people are viewing you on Facebook.
Mm, cool. Yeah, and I know we've spoken about it, but just for our audience, you've run a few LinkedIn ad campaigns. How do you generally find them in terms of ad spend and conversions in comparison to Facebook and Instagram?
Yeah, so when I was running those campaigns, it was a while ago, but I know things really haven't changed too much. I know that when I was running them, I think you had to spend at minimum $10 a day, per maybe it was per ad set. It's been a while, but I have heard recently that at minimum you should be spending like $50 a day or something on LinkedIn. So it's the ads cost more. Um, but if you are looking for that kind of audience, then that really is the place that you should be. There are just certain businesses where Facebook and Instagram just don't make sense for them. So I would definitely say try LinkedIn or even Google, that might be good for some businesses as well. I like Google and Facebook, Instagram ads. Just both of those at the same time tend to work really well for certain businesses as well, like e-commerce. So yeah, it really depends.
Okay, cool. And I'm going to put you on the spot here, Heather. Have you got any free offer or lead magnet you would like to share with our audience?
Do have some lead magnets. I have one lead magnet that talks about, the keys, the five keys. I haven't even said it in a while, so it's a really long name. I've never been able to shorten it, but it's basically like the foundation to have in your business in order to make your ads a success. So yeah, I have that. I do have a mini course that I offer as well. It's only $9, so it's close to free. So I have that as well, and that actually helps people set up um, engagement ads, like we were talking about. So you could start them at $1 a day.
Okay, cool. Well, what we'll do for our audience, we'll make sure that we put the links to both of those if you'd like us to in the description below, and then they can choose what they would like and then opt in. How does that sound?
That sounds great.
Okay, fantastic. Is there anything you'd like to add or share further with our audience before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I would just say if you are interested in running ads for your business, I know they can seem a little scary, especially when you get into Ads Manager, but it really isn't as scary as you think. And, there are people out there to help you. And there are plenty of places to look. Even ChatGPT can help you. So yeah, just give it a try. Give it a try. You can, set your budget very low if you want, and you won't overspend. So it's not as scary as people make it out to be.
Mm, but I would still recommend that they see an expert like yourself, Heather,
Yeah.
because it's going to take,
Yes.
it will save a lot of frustration, probably wasted resources in terms of the financial side of things. And you're going to get a better result with an expert that is in Facebook or Meta every day and knows what's going on. That would be
Yeah.
my advice to our audience.
Yes, that is very good advice. So they could always book a power hour with me and I can help walk them through anything that they're dealing with.
Okay, cool. We'll include that link down the bottom in the description as well. So you've got three
Sounds good.
options there, guys. Please be sure to take up one of those options, if not all three of them. And that power hour with Heather sounds amazing. So I'd encourage you to do that.
Thank you.
Okay, well, look, Heather, just thank you so much for spending your time with me today and, running through and giving us a bit more insight into how Meta is working today. And as we know, things change in the world of Meta all the time. But it's just great to have the insights of someone like you who is an expert in the area of ad spend, both on Facebook and on Instagram. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me and for your interest in ads. I
No
appreciate
worries.
it.
Okay, have an amazing day.
You too.